Thanks, Eric. We have with us Nathan Nelson, a research agronomist from Kansas State University. He has recently been working on a research project to help minimize phosphorus loss. Nathan, can you please tell us a little bit about this project?
The project that we have is looking at ways to develop best management practices to minimize phosphorus loss from agricultural fields. This project is a little bit unique because it's at a larger scale. We have 18 small watersheds that we have applied different treatments to. And we're in the first year of the project. It took us a little bit to get everything set up last year, and now we are collecting data. I've had a spring full of rain, and so we have a lot of data now that we can use to test to see if our treatments are making any impacts. And the main treatments we're looking at is the difference between surface-applied fertilizer or subsurface-applied fertilizer, and the difference between cover crops, using a cover crop and not having a cover crop.
So in this project, you refer to the 4 R's. What does that exactly mean?
So the 4 R's are the right source, the right rate, the right place, and the right time for fertilizer. So anytime you go out and make, or any, not just fertilizer, any nutrient application, anytime you make a nutrient application, you have a choice between the source, the rate, the time, and the placement. And by selecting the correct set of those 4 R's, you can minimize your losses and maximize the agronomic efficiency of that nutrient source. So really the 4 R's is all about using your nutrients to get your biggest agronomic response and the biggest economic response, so the producers can be economically profitable as well, and then at the same time minimize losses to the environment.
What is the best practices to help reduce phosphorus loss?
The best management practices to reduce phosphorus loss generally focus around, again, those 4 R's, and change a little bit from one source to another and one management system to another. If we focus in on fertilizer management, and that's what our project right now is focusing on, is just fertilizers, not looking at manures, then generally from past studies, the best method for reducing losses is to subsurface apply the fertilizer, generally at planting. And when you subsurface apply it at planting, you tend to reduce the losses the most. But there are some disadvantages for a producer. Sometimes it takes a little bit more time to do that at planting. Sometimes the fertilizers are a little bit more expensive. So there are some producers that would rather fall apply fertilizer and surface broadcast that fertilizer. There are some advantages to that. And so we're looking at developing best management practices that would still minimize losses, but yet allow producers to continue to use flexible management options and still use that fall applied fertilizer option.
So from your hypothesis, which is better of the two, spring or fall surface?
So we're just in the first part of the study. So our hypothesis would be that subsurface placement will still have lower phosphorus loss than a fall broadcast application. However, if we use management practices that minimize runoff and allow some of the rain that falls in the early spring to infiltrate into the soil rather than runoff, so if we reduce the early spring runoff, that will allow some of that phosphorus to move that was fall applied, move that into the soil over winter and early spring rains, so that when the heavy spring rains come, that phosphorus is now moved below the soil surface and we have less loss. And so that's our hypothesis, is that if we can, and the way we would do that is to use cover crops. So cover crops use some soil moisture. They would generally keep the soil a little bit drier, and they can protect the soil from erosion losses and from raindrop impact, which tends to also increase infiltration. So if we can increase infiltration on some of these early spring rains by using cover crops, then we hope that will reduce the losses so that producers can still surface broadcast fertilizer in the fall and protect the environment at the same time.
So would you say that's your overall mission for this project?
that is the specific goal. The objective of the project is to develop those best management practices and have some data to illustrate those processes and understand those processes better.
Well, thank you so much. And that was Nathan Nelson, a research agronomist for Kansas State, talking about his new research findings to help minimize phosphorus loss. For Agriculture Today, I'm Charles C. Craig. Now, here is Michelle Keys and her guest. Michelle?